Hello, welcome to Issues and Ideas. I'm Chris DeBello. As early voting wraps up, this Tuesday is the actual election day here in New Jersey. Main focus in this election, of course, is the race for governor. Now, while every seat in the state assembly is also on the ballot, it's the race for governor which has received the most attention for the different implications the results just might have. Our first guest today is with us to look at the two campaigns of the candidates for New Jersey governor and what their effectiveness has in fact been. He's political columnist for the Bergen Record and NorthJersey.com. Charlie Stile, how are you today, Charlie?
How you doing?
All right, good to talk with you. You always are able to make sense because, well, you look at politics with honesty and truth, so that's a novelty in some cases, but we're glad you do it. Let's start with the Mike Sherrill campaign because going into an election in New Jersey, the assumption always is that the Democrats are going to have the easy time in establishing themselves, connecting with the voters. How's the Sherrill campaign been in those issues?
It's a good question, and it's been very hard to measure. There's been some concern in the party ranks that she hadn't been connecting as much as she needed to be and with the party base and stirring up enough enthusiasm. That may have been improved over the past couple of weeks. Definitely the get out the vote operation seems to be more intensified. She's bringing in a lot of national surrogates, ranging from Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, and Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, to President Obama on Saturday in Newark. And it just seems she seems to be more focused. There's a little more fire. But it is a concern that the Democratic Party has been sort of demoralized after last year's poor showing for Kamala Harris in New Jersey, who still won the state by 6 points, but it gave buoyed the hopes of a lot of Republicans.
In a way, New Jersey is a similar situation, opposite directions, but similar situation as Texas. The threat of going purple is increasing in New Jersey like it is in Texas. Would you say that was true?
I beg to differ a little bit about that. First of all, we do on the governor's race have a purple tradition. If you go back the past 50 years, we've had 3 Republican governors who served 2 terms. That's a total of 24 years. More than 50 years, actually. I used to use that measurement all the time, but that was about 5 years ago. So I got to add, I keep finding time keeps marching on. But, and secondly, even though definitely the Republicans had room to crow after last year, after Donald Trump, who lost New Jersey by 16 points in 2016 and 11 points in 2020, for him to come that close in 2024, 6 points, was considered a major achievement. But if you drill down a little bit on that, it wasn't so much that he surged. He did in some areas. I don't want to downplay that. As much as Harris failed to bring out the vote. I mean, her vote totals were about 425,000 fewer than Joe Biden's in 2020. And not all those votes clearly went to Trump. I mean, he gained about 86,000 more votes over 2020. So clearly all those votes didn't rush off to him. I think a lot of Democrats were demoralized or bored. They took it for granted. The party machinery didn't come out and try to get the vote out. They just assumed New Jersey would be blue, and they deployed their resources to Pennsylvania, which was a swing state. And they woke up on the day after the election day and with egg on their face. But I'm not so sure it really can be signify a trending red state. I think it was more of an aberration.
On the other side, of course,
trending red in a presidential race. We definitely have a purple tradition on the governor's race, but in national politics we've been blue for a long time, and I did not really read last year as a turning point towards the state going purple in national.
On the flip side, with the Jack Ciattarelli campaign, he put himself in an interesting position. He was all in with a Trump connection. Then moving forward in time, Trump pulls the plug on the Gateway Tunnel project. Haven't heard Jack and haven't seen too many commercials of his boasting about the Trump connection anymore. Is that going to be, I guess the question is, if he were to win, which Jack Ciattarelli are we going to get, the MAGA or the non-MAGA?
Very good question. I think you're going to have to get a blend of both. I think, though, Ciattarelli, to be fair, I think he has a long tradition or reputation, excuse me, as a conventional New Jersey establishment Republican. He comes from the center of the spectrum. He's always been that way. I mean, he's conservative. I don't want to underestimate. He still has a conservative record, but not to the heart, right? I think he latched on to Trump out of necessity more than an ideological affinity. And I really get the sense that if Jack Ciattarelli is elected, he's going to really hunker down, put on the green eye shade, and start really trying to fix some of the grimy things of governance, like New Jersey Transit and the motor vehicles and school funding formula. He wants to get into that policy ferment, and he'll be doing this likely with the Democratic legislature, and so I think there's some hope that he would move the state, that with the Democrats sort of serving it as a check and balance to his governance, the state moves in more of a centrist direction. That's one view of it. But the other side of this coin, though, is that he has so fulsomely embraced Trump as in an effort to get out the base that if you really look at some of the things he has said, he is more MAGA than his reputation suggests. So, especially on immigration affairs, I mean, he's talked about taking the handcuffs off police, ending the sanctuary state policies, and there are some MAGA light aspects of his record that I think he will implement if elected. So you're going to get a kind of a mixed bag.
Right, we have a time with Charlie Stile, who is political columnist for the Bergen Record, NorthJersey.com, NorthJersey.com, the obvious website. You're listening to Issues and Ideas. Seeing the polls kind of all over the place. I mean, I know polls rely on the mechanics, but just in the past week, one day you'll see a poll where it's a 1-point difference, and it's an 8-point difference with Cheryl on top.
Yeah.
How solid do you see the support for the respective two candidates? Or can there be some day of decision making by some people saying, I was going to, but instead I'm going to?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, really. It's very hard to. I think the enthusiasm is high in both, but I think the edge goes to Ciattarelli. The Republicans are showing some more enthusiasm. I think the party has been out in the wilderness so long in the state, particularly in Trenton. They've had to endure over the past 8 years a Democratic supermajority trifecta, governor's office, veto-proof majorities in both houses, and then the Democrats go even further. They've been in control of the legislature for almost 2 decades. So, and even when Chris Christie was the governor, Republicans in the legislature really didn't have much say in anything. They were just told to keep their mouths shut and vote along, his agenda. And so they didn't really have much room to sort of legislate on their own. So you have a lot of expectation and frustration among the Republican Party to finally get some power or earn some power. And Ciattarelli is, he's a formidable candidate. He represents their best hope. So I think they're hoping that frustration will, a lot of people who get in the booth on Tuesday will say, you know what, we need change. And in fact, their internal poll showed a great desire for change, and they're really banking on it. On the flip side, I think the Democrats and Cheryl's campaign are hoping that people, when they get in that booth, they say, you know what, I can't. I mean, maybe Mikey Sherrill isn't the greatest candidate in the world, but I just cannot give a vote to a MAGA Republican and give Donald Trump a win here in New Jersey. That would be unconscionable. I'm voting for Sherrill. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's and certainly, even though I'm assuming just by their actions or lack of, the two candidates don't want the national spotlight on this one particular race. Nevertheless, I think it's going to be for a variety of reasons.
Oh, there's no way.
Especially,
no way. There's no way to avoid that. I mean, the national spotlight. We got NBC, every press call now. I got NBC, CBS, CNN. They are all tuned in, and they all are looking at this race as a sort of weather vane, bellwether. Choose whatever cliche you want for the 2020 elections. They want to see if New Jersey loses. If Sherrill loses, this is going to be, to the Republicans, a validation of Trump and his messaging.
Yep. If
Sherrill wins, they've held the line, and that Trump and Trumpism is in decline, or just didn't, despite the big success last year or the promising results last year, it was an aberration. So nationally, there's already a lot of attention. We got Harry Enton on CNN doing New Jersey poll analysis. I mean, it's all over the place. You can't avoid it.
And to keep on top of what is happening, all things politics in New Jersey, Charlie's the go-to for that. You find his work at NorthJersey.com, political columnist for Bergen Record. NorthJersey.com, Charlie Stile. Thanks for being here. Help us try to make sense out of all this, and should be an exciting night on Election Day. Thanks again.
It will, and it's my pleasure.
While we hope that we can provide for ourselves and our families, reality can bring with it challenging times. That's putting it mildly. Those times have been dealt with through the certainty of programs like SNAP. Now that the certainty has been placed into question, it's organizations like the one my guest leads, which has been called on to respond in even greater ways than they've already been relied on to do. The only way that can happen is through the support of people like you, if you've had things go well for yourself. And if that's you, I hope you'll understand the role that you could play in supporting the Salvation Army here in New Jersey. Joining us to explain the programs, the services that they offer for those in need of food assistance and other needs is the Divisional Commander of the Salvation Army New Jersey Division, Major Brett DeMichael. Thanks for being here today, Major.
Chris, thanks for having me. I always appreciate the opportunity.
A couple of websites. We do have them at our homepage for New Jersey at salvationarmynj.org. And if you're listening on the stream with the podcast, salvationarmyusa.org, and you can find your local Salvation Army that way. What have you been hearing from people so far? I mean, we all knew this was a possibility, then possibility became likelihood, and here we are in the here and now. So how have you been measuring the crowd and the people you serve over these last couple of weeks?
Yeah, Chris, a lot of it is narrative. A lot of it is hearing people's concern about possibility of difficulty moving forward. The Christmas season, the holiday season is always a struggle for a lot of people anyway, and this kind of compounds it. I can't really get into too many of the details about it, except to say that what we see is that people are expressing need, and we know from past experience that need increases in this time of year without a dramatic shift like the one we're talking about concurrently with the holiday season. And so, we just stand ready to assist in any way possible. Our main goal is to provide people what they need to make it through difficult times, give some hope, bring some joy, and really provide for practical needs as best we can.
And talk about some of the ways you do that, because you're a lot more than a food pantry or, you're religious based and faith based, to say the least, and that I think plays an important role in giving the comfort that you give. It's great to do the material comfort, but the spiritual comfort, I think, plays a equal, if not even larger part in these times.
There's no doubt. I mean, our mission statement, for the Salvation Army says that our ministry is motivated by the love of God. The love that God shares with us is love that we want to share with the people around us. That's not limited to anything. It's not limited by any, thing that other people might consider a barrier. We serve everyone without discrimination, and we are compelled to do that by the love that we have for the world around us. And it is food, but it's not just food. You're right. I mean, we in New Jersey alone, we served 6 million meals last year. When you consider food pantry and meal programs such as lunch programs and breakfast programs and things like that. But depending on the location, there's also availability of rent assistance, and certainly, whenever you walk into a Salvation Army facility, you can expect that there would be a spirit of love and spiritual concern as well. And, you can always be sure that there would be somebody on site that, if you desired, could speak with you on spiritual matters, could pray with you even, and address those things. None of those are necessary to receive the services, but they are the DNA of who we are and why we do what we do.
We've been hearing a lot that food pantries have been having to fight extra hard to keep food on the shelves, because the worst thing that could happen is someone comes in assuming that, okay, something happened bad here, but something good is going to happen over there, and if it doesn't, then that person becomes even more lost and confused and pressured than they already have. As far as your food banks and food supplies, how are you at this time of year? I mean, is this time of year actually for lack of a better phrase, a good time for this to happen, because people have donating already either in mind or forming in mind?
Yeah, in a way it is, and that's a really interesting point that you make, Chris, because we, in every community that we serve in the state of New Jersey, we've always been blessed by generous donors and generous neighbors who desire to help their own neighbors through the avenue of the Salvation Army. And so certainly there's a lot of gearing up for Thanksgiving, meal distribution and Christmas assistance and things like that. So there is that. We have wonderful partners through food banks in local communities and things like that. Plus, the idea of what the Salvation Army does, we're most visible at the holiday season. There's no doubt about it. And that benefits us in great ways, because the communities that we serve entrust us to help their neighbors that are in need, and so find that we're a great conduit for them to support their own neighbors that need our support. So I hesitate to say that we have enough, because it never feels like enough. The need continues to rise. But we're blessed to have generous donors and generous neighbors who want to help each other in our communities.
So Major Brett DeMichael, who is the Divisional Commander of the Salvation Army New Jersey Division, salvationarmynj.org. If you're listening on the podcast, stream salvationarmyusa.org. And that site will get you to the location and the services of your local Salvation Army. And you're listening to Issues and Ideas. People donating, certainly that's one part of the equation. People giving comfort and organizing, another part of the equation. Volunteers, what's the role they play in times like this? And is there a need for people power to get behind everything that you've got going on right now?
Yeah, always. That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, Chris, because volunteerism is always a need for the Salvation Army, particularly this time of year. When you walk into, if you're someone who needs our assistance, and you walk in for, say, a food distribution or a toy distribution at Christmas time, the majority of the people that you're going to encounter are going to be the volunteers that are giving of their time to serve their neighbors in the community. Certainly, it's no secret that the majority of the people that you see ringing the bells at Christmas time, kettles for the Salvation Army, are volunteers as well. And so those volunteer opportunities are plentiful in the state of New Jersey. And again, I would direct anybody to our website, salvationarmynj.org, for opportunities to volunteer their time. For the most part, we can almost always accommodate somebody's schedule, someone's need, someone's desire, and the way that they would like to support us. There'll almost always be an opportunity for somebody to be able to do that, and it's the lifeblood of who we are, particularly this time of year.
As far as donations, what serves you and the work you do better? Is it food donations, or can you get more done with cash and gift card donations?
Yeah, if I'm being candid with you, Chris, the cash and gift card donations are obviously the easiest ones to to utilize because they can go in a way that maybe we don't anticipate. We can utilize a cash donation to buy extra toys if we need them, extra food if we need it. We're not going to turn away any kind of donation. We're grateful for it. We'll receive it, and we'll do everything we can to distribute it appropriately because that's what people trust us to do. But if you're asking me, the easiest way for someone to participate in that way would be a cash or a gift card donation. Now, also have to acknowledge that that's not possible for everyone, and would never want to close the door on what people can do as opposed to what they'd like to do. I mean, everybody would probably like to give money, but not everybody can. And so, whatever is feasible for the individual, we're happy to accept and utilize. But to answer your direct question, yeah, the cash donations are what works the best, and we guarantee you, we promise you, that 100% of that cash donation stays local in your community, whatever community you designate. We really are proud of that, and we want people to be able to know that they're helping their own neighbors.
I'm not saying whether that idea is right or wrong, but I think it gives people the motivation to step forward when they know that they're helping people around them, their coworkers, their friends, their family members. I mean, hunger is one of those things we suffer with in silence when we have to deal with it. It's not something you want to go around with a badge on. I have no food for my table this month. Please help. I mean, people don't work that way. They keep it to themselves. And getting back to the faith aspect of the Salvation Army, when someone comes in for food assistance, for example, do they learn about all the other ways that their spirit, their heart, their life could be supported and that they might not have considered or connected with the Salvation Army?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people don't even recognize it, but the word salvation is right in our name. That's who we are, and that to us, that's a very spiritual term that has a definition that we're always happy to explain to those who may wonder what that's all about. But for sure, anytime you walk into a Salvation Army facility, there's going to be evidence all around you of what the holistic nature of our ministry is all about. It's about, again, the love of God flowing through people that desire to serve their neighbors, because that's what the Bible asks us to do. And you don't even have to be on board with that spiritual message to want to help us, because I think the idea of serving each other is sort of a universal cause that people in their heart of hearts really want to get on board with. It fills a natural desire that's in our heart to be able to serve each other and to love people. That's how we're built as people, and so the desire to do that is just really baked into everything that we do, and I think it connects with where people are. And there's evidence of that whenever the Salvation Army is present. At least that's our hope. That's our end goal for sure.
And in these times of challenge and trials for families in need, there's over 800,000 people in New Jersey who have been relying on the SNAP benefits program. I think when people who, as I said back in the introduction, people who have things going well for them hear that number, I think first it comes as a surprise to them that the number is that large. Yeah. And second, if they have a heart and a soul, I think they see that they look around in their lives saying, I got enough I could do for others. And this, I've been saying this with greater frequency in these past few months. If a lot of people do just a little, a lot of things can become for the better.
Yeah, for sure. And I the thing that strikes me as you mentioned that number, excuse me, is that with a number like that in our state, no matter what situation you're in, you know somebody who's in that situation. You may not know that you know somebody, but everybody knows somebody that's in that situation. And with the potential increase, it almost reminds me of things that happened during COVID, when people who had never been in the situation that they are before find themselves in that situation, or they're not really sure what to do or where to go. And hopefully the Salvation Army is recognizable enough that you may not know exactly who we are, you may not know exactly what we're about, but you know that when you find the Salvation Army, they're going to be ready and willing to help you and to serve you and to love you in very practical ways. And, that's our desire. That's why it's so important that people recognize the shield, they recognize who we are and what we do, even to the smallest degree, because people just know your neighbors need that help, and anything that we can do to point each other in the right direction to receive that and even participate in that is just really what living together in community is all about.
I'm going to close this segment by saying to you, if you are one of those people in need, there's no shame in stepping forward and asking for assistance, for help, because without it, left on your own, you can be stubborn and struggle, but with organizations like the Salvation Army, they can bring peace into your heart and soul and put food on your table and give you the strength you need to fight against the challenging times that so many are facing in the present day. Find out more about the Salvation Army in New Jersey, salvationarmynj.org. If you're listening elsewhere, salvationarmyusa.org, and that will get you to the local Salvation Army where you are. We've been talking with the Divisional Commander of the Salvation Army New Jersey Division, Major Brett DeMichael. Major, thank you so much for the difference you make in so many communities, so many lives, and how you compel and inspire people to be a part of your work and help others. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, and thank you, Chris, for being an advocate and a supporter. We always are grateful for you. Thanks for the opportunity.
The value of life, quality of life, right to life. Three often used terms whose definitions, when you think about it, really depends on who's doing the defining. That definition is extremely important, especially when it concerns unborn babies. If you learn in advance through medical science that your baby will be born in total agony, only to live a brief amount of time, well, that's very different compared to being told that your child will look different and have some challenges in life on a day-to-day basis. Yet if I told you what the rate of abortions is concerning the latter versus the former, I'm confident it would sicken and anger you. Yet when parents-to-be learn that their unborn baby will be born with Down syndrome, their choice, in a larger number than you probably imagine, is abortion. The next guest is a family physician who can speak about this issue with the highest level of authority and expertise, not only as a medical professional, but also the mother of a child with Down syndrome. She is affiliated with Riverside Methodist Hospital and Ohio Health Grant Medical Center. Dr. Lindsay Rerko, thank you for being here today, Doctor.
Thank you for having me on.
And a website I want to give you, and we have it on our homepage too. It's for the National Down Syndrome Society. To find out more information, ndss.org. And like I said, we have that on our homepage as well. And I want to start with the basics, Doctor, because I've noticed in backgrounds preparation for this segment, so many people can't even pronounce the affliction. They'll say Down's syndrome, the plural, where if you can't get the name right, how can understanding come about? That for whatever reason, that seemed to bother me for some reason.
Yep, I think we're stuck in the past with this condition, and we need to be brought up to speed with good scientific evidence about what Down syndrome looks like today.
Well, I did see a report that a branch of a Senate committee, the Social Capital Project, did on Down syndrome recently. And you mentioned about getting up to date. In the past, you go back 30 years, give or take, life expectancy for a baby born with Down syndrome was not spectacular, to say the least. But if you look at the charts and the trends, it's as close to a normal lifespan as one would hope for all things being considered. What are some of the other trends? What are some of the other points of understanding that are missing with people when they look at the visual, whether it be through prenatal screening or if they see a child with Down syndrome? What are they missing by concentrating on the visual and not the heart and the soul of the person?
Absolutely. So like you mentioned, we've come leaps and bounds with life expectancy. In 1960, on average, a person with Down syndrome would live to be about 10 years old, and now it's 60 years old. So a lot of this probably has to do with addressing simple health conditions that we know go along with Down syndrome. One of the great things about this condition, being the most common chromosomal abnormality, is that we have the medical playbook. We know what to expect, we know these co-conditions, and we know how to treat them. When these children weren't living very long, we probably weren't correcting their heart defects. This is a simple, straightforward repair that can be done in nearly all heart conditions that affect Down syndrome. So in fact, our daughter Caroline, we knew when we were pregnant with her that she had one of these heart defects, AV canal defect, where she had a little hole between the top two chambers as well as the bottom two chambers. And this is a very straightforward surgery that she had done when she was about 15 months old, and she came through with flying colors. But I think kids were sent to be institutionalized many decades ago, and that's just not the case now. We're giving them a chance. We're bringing them home. We're integrating them with their peers. They're going to mainstream school, and they're getting lots of therapies. And they can lead very normal lives with going to school, getting married, living independently. Some of them are even modeling and running marathons. So the sky is the limit.
Yes, if you've ever attended a Special Olympics event, you'll be amazed by what many of these young adults are capable of doing, more than many of us are capable of doing on an athletic field when you think about that. And I mentioned
Very true.
I mentioned, Doctor, in the introduction that the rate of abortion because of prenatal testing and non-invasive prenatal testing, I should say, is anywhere, depending on the survey, you look at 60 to 90% of children diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted in the U.S. I'm not talking about China or some European country or an African country. I'm talking here in America. That compares to 18% of all pregnancies ending in abortion. So, I mean, I guess you could say that's one of the downsides of prenatal testing and for Down syndrome, which it's the most accurate. But the upside the fact that if Down syndrome is detected in the unborn baby, steps can be taken even before birth to make the early days, early months, early years of life a lot easier than being inattentive to everything and just finding out after the fact.
Absolutely. I think by having that knowledge ahead of time, you can plan for your delivery. So we met at our local children's hospital, a clinic called the Fetal Center, where we got to meet with a cardiologist, a geneticist, social workers. So we had a plan. So I think if your child, for example, had a heart defect that would cause symptoms for them right at birth, you would want to plan to know that you were having a baby where you had great care, a NICU, maybe a children's hospital nearby, that they could get the attention that they needed. But I think, it's a double-edged sword. You're given your child like lifetime of potential medical problems, right? You've not even met this little one, and already you're thinking, what if she has this heart defect? What if she gets leukemia? What if she gets, all these other conditions associated with Down syndrome? When if any of us knew that about any of our other kids, it would be frightening if we knew they would someday have diabetes or depression. We don't want to know all of that all at once. So it's tough to have this much information this early on.
But it's just, again, reinforcing the fact that parenting, the foundation for parenting is responsibility, and responsibility in a loving way. So for the parent who's listening right now who is wondering if my child is going to have Down syndrome, I mean, there are people who take things to such extremes where I don't want to have a child because they haven't even conceived yet, and they're thinking, I don't want to bring a Down syndrome child into the world. Talk about the kids you've been exposed to. Are they happy? Are they alive? Are they alive versus just living?
Right, they are absolutely alive. I think everyone that Caroline encounters walks away with a happier disposition. She makes friends everywhere she goes. She's giving hugs. She's giving high fives. She leaves them with a smile on their face. And they've actually surveyed siblings of children with Down syndrome, and 88% said they are distinctly better people by having a loved one with Down syndrome. And if you survey the Down syndrome population, the majority of them are very happy with their lives. So there's so much joy there. And I think the world just needs more people with Down syndrome because they really add so much to life. Caroline is just the joy of our family, and I can't imagine life without her.
Actually, not to contradict you, I think more people need to have time with children with Down syndrome. I mentioned the Special Olympics. Certainly that's active. We're here in New Jersey, but of course nationwide. That's a great step forward for you as a parent, a wannabe parent, someone who just wants to know about people in our world that matter. And for them to matter, you have to understand them, appreciate them, and love them as a parent, just as a fellow person in what we call the human race. And I think what Dr. Rerko does by coming forward as a mother of a Down syndrome child as well as a medical professional, she really helped you understand that open mind and listening to the person that we're with, not imagining or limiting the person that we're with. That's the steps that we have to take. And you want to find out more about Down syndrome, you can go to the website for the National Down Syndrome Society, ndss.org. Dr. Lindsay Rerko, you bring understanding to help people who deserve to be loved and appreciated and respected. And I thank you for doing that, for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
It's time once again for Trump Said It.
What did you mean last night when you said you were prepared to send more than the National Guard into American cities?
Sure, I would. I would do that if it was necessary. You know, if it was necessary, I'd do that, but it hasn't been necessary. We're doing a great job without that, but yeah, if it was necessary. As you know, I'm allowed to do that.
Do you mean other branches of the military you would send in, or?
If it were, who are you with?
The New York Times.
Well, that's very good, very good. Well, if you write it correctly, I'll give you the answer. But, you know, if I want to enact a certain act, I'm allowed to do it routinely, and about 50% of presidents have used that, as you know, and I'd be allowed to do whatever I want. But we haven't chosen to do that because we're doing very well without it. But I'd be allowed to do that, you understand that. And the courts wouldn't get involved, nobody would get involved, and I could send the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, I could send anybody I wanted.
When I say climate change, what names come to your mind first? Al Gore? Maybe Bill Gates? Okay. Why do those, or whichever name you first thought of, why do they come to your mind? What have those names done or actually accomplished? Other than fame, what do they bring to the climate change discussion? Oh, it's certainly great to bring attention to a cause, but what's accomplished when all that's realized are words and promises? The next guest with his new book reveals to you who has the walk versus who has the talk when it comes to confronting climate change. This is one of those important opportunities to learn about people you don't know about, but I think you need to. Importantly, why you need to know about them. You'll find all this in the book, The Real Environmentalists, How Wayne Elliott and Other Capitalists Will Save the World, written by best-selling author, entrepreneur, host of the radio show School for Startups, Jim Beach. Thanks for being here today, Jim.
Thank you so much for having me.
A couple of websites, and of course we do have them at our homepage as well for Jim's book, realenvironmentalist.com. And for the rest of Jim's world, Jim Beach, BEACH.com.
Thank you.
You use the term for a foundation here, performative environmentalism. Talk about what that is, what are the elements of it, and what are the problems it's creating in understanding how climate change should be addressed.
Well, I'm impressed that you knew to ask that. That's a great question. The idea is that so many celebrities, government agencies, non-government agencies are out there talking a lot about what they're doing for the environment. They're performing, but they don't actually do anything. They don't get their hands dirty. They're not actually making a difference. And so I've called it performative environmentalism. And Leonardo DiCaprio may be our best example. He gives a speech at the United Nations, wins an award, then gets on his private jet and flies to his private super yacht. He didn't actually do anything. He gave gave a speech and received an award. It took him 30 minutes to do that. He didn't write the speech himself. He had probably never read it before that day. All he did is get up there and read a speech. And for that, he was given an environmental award. He didn't do anything. He didn't go clean any beaches. He didn't go clean up any plastic. He didn't do 20 years of research like some of the heroes in the book did. He just read an award. And now he's considered a great environmentalist, but he's just performing. He's not actually doing anything. And so many other celebrities and groups are doing this exact same thing. They go to the environmental summits and make a big talk, but they're not doing anything. And what I discovered is that there are a group of people who are quietly out there making a huge difference, and those are entrepreneurs, people who are not associated as being great environmentalists. They're not the ones that we think of when we talk about environmentalists, like you started the introduction with. They're unheard, and those, though, are the ones that are making the difference. I discovered 216 American companies for-profit companies that are out there tackling environmental problems right now today. And they're not getting much credit. We don't talk about them. They're not invited to the big summits, but they are already tackling every part of the environmental crisis. I'm not going to deny that we have problems. I'm not going to argue about who created the problem. I don't care. I'm excited about the number of people already out there solving the problem. And I don't know if you saw in the news yesterday, but Bill Gates came out and said that we're not going to die from the environment. And he, caught some pushback from that. A lot of people didn't like him saying that. My message is incredibly optimistic. Bill Gates is right. We are going to survive. Keep having babies, people. The world is not going to end. We will modify our lifestyle a little bit, but we're going to get through it. It's fine. And the climate's getting better all the time.
And plus the fact, if you look at just the recent hurricane that went through the Atlantic, Hurricane Melissa, if we think that we can influence Mother Nature, the weather, whatever you want to call it, that's pretty arrogant on our part.
There's no way we can alter a hurricane. That is absolutely ridiculous, the idea that somehow we can change that. And another thing, this was supposed to be yet another high hurricane year, but we only have had one so far that's actually hit landshore. So it's been a very low year. Another time when the official scientific projections were just flat out wrong.
Talking with Jim Beach, his new book, The Real Environmentalist, How Wayne Elliott and Other Capitalists Will Save the World. You're listening to Issues and Ideas. And it's important to stress that word capitalist like I just did, Jim, because this creates a conundrum, but your book supplies the solution to it. The left primarily is concerned with climate change, and by and large are repulsed by the idea of capitalism. You go to the other side on the right, they don't really believe in climate change. They embrace capitalism. So we have that canyon between those two sides where the answer rests. And I think your book is the roadmap to navigate through that canyon.
We need to let the entrepreneurs go and solve some of these problems. The problems are there. There are less coral than there used to be. That doesn't indicate that the world is going to end, though. And the cool thing is that one of the entrepreneurs in my book, a guy named Gator Halpern, figured out how to grow coral 50 times faster than God does it. He can now go in and put a coral reef in front of a resort over the weekend. And so the idea that we're going to kill all of our coral and that we will die because the marsh areas disappear, it's just silly. It's just not going to happen. People are addressing each part of the environmental problem right now and solving that problem. Our air, our water, and our soil are all being addressed by amazing entrepreneurs.
You have one gentleman who is raising battery recycling rates to 97%. That's certainly resolving a great environmental issue. Another one that you write about, turning microplastics. We're hearing a lot of that with that term in recent months. Microplastics that are found in the Pacific Ocean into, of all things, sneakers. So it sounds like, what is a environmental problem? There's money to be made as well as a environment to be preserved.
That's right. So many of the environmentalists, they want grants to go and do something, to have a study or something. The environmentalists in the book, these entrepreneurs, have something else. They have revenue. And so they're an ongoing entity. They don't have to keep raising money from the government, going out there and making statements to attract attention to get money. They have a different thing called customers who gladly pay them money. When a resort wants a reef, they'll gladly pay it. When I buy sneakers, I'll gladly buy the sneakers that also got rid of the microplastics. That's a double win for me, right? And so the idea that we're going to beg for money is changing now, and the environment now is going to be addressed by people who are making profit from customers, and that's what's the difference. That will make the difference. We don't have to beg anymore because we have customers who will gladly give me their money.
And it sounds like a whole another aspect of not just the American economy, but the worldwide economy, which seems to have a lot of growth potential in it. For you being an entrepreneur, you would certainly be one to recognize it as far as getting in on the ground floor is something that has nothing but growth ahead of it.
That's right. Huge opportunity there, maybe even particularly in nuclear, believe it or not. These fourth-generation nuclear power plants that are the size of a small car and built in a factory can power a small little town, and that town could have its own nuclear reactor, and it has almost a zero chance of a meltdown because it's not based on water coolants anymore. They have a new coolant. They use salt, and it's a much better coolant and much safer. They could use these also to power spaceships to go on long journeys. So the opportunities there with these new technologies, the new technologies that all of the 216 companies are developing, it's just amazing stuff, and there's opportunities everywhere. It's probably, if I wanted to start a business now, the environment would be the place to look.
And Jim gives these true people who are making accomplishments and making things happen and developing real factual change and solutions in The Real Environmentalist, how Wayne Elliott and other capitalists will save the world. That is not an understatement, by the way, when you read these stories, and there are a lot of them, plus the reality wake-up calls about the people who are in the imagined forefront of the environmental cause, which they're coming up with more things empty than anything of substance. You'll learn more about that as well. Maybe even be just reminded about that, which is equally as important. RealEnvironmentalist.com for Jim's book. And for the rest of Jim Beach's world, it is JimBeach.com. Jim, thank you for alerting us to the work that these people are doing, because you, along with the information, you provide the motivation to support what they are doing to further progress it and further make a difference. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Social media serves many purposes. One of those purposes is how it allows so many people to reveal so freely just how ignorant and heartless they happen to be. The evidence of this comes to us via the reactions these people have shown to the funding of the SNAP food assistance program being suspended. While worded in different ways, it comes down to basically two camps of thought, for lack of a better word. One is that most people receiving SNAP benefits are undocumented immigrants, so it's good that they're losing out on this. Reality is that it's against federal law for undocumented immigrants to receive SNAP benefits, other benefits too. The other attack by the heartless among us is that everyone on SNAP, they're lazy bums who need to get out and get a job. Truth is, most of those on SNAP have a job, at least for the moment. Considering how our growing number of companies are cutting jobs, that could change at any time. Now, if you think a person earning $16 an hour can cover the entire cost of living, even bare bones, you really need to think about that again. The rest of these people are seniors and the disabled. Now, where do you suggest they get a job? There are 41.7 million people receiving SNAP benefits. 16.3 million of those are children under the age of 18. What adds to the sadness created by the heartlessness of the people making false claims about SNAP is that at the same time they claim to be Christian. Can those people be any further away from what Jesus teaches us in John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35? A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Got a question for you. How many of us seek certainty in life? 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 8 provides us with exactly that. Reading here, love never fails. We are here through the grace of God to be with and for one another. Reading from Galatians chapter 5, verse 13, for you, brethren, have been called to liberty, only do not use liberty as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. These days when so many, especially those I'm addressing today, want to wallow in anger and hatred, they're turning their backs to the lesson in Colossians chapter 3, verse 14. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection. Just like I have, you've probably seen TV shows, videos referring to, quote-unquote, the secrets of the Bible. Well, other than the day of the return of Jesus, the Bible pretty much makes everything it addresses crystal clear. This includes what having a narrow mind and a dark heart will result in for the person who carries those within themselves. Let's go to 1 John chapter 3, verse 15. Whoever hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. I wonder if someone who holds hatred close to themselves knew the company that hatred kept, would they change their ways? Galatians chapter 5, verses 19 through 21 reveals that company. Now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, and the like, of which I tell you beforehand, just as I told you in time past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. To those with hard and dark hearts who yet consider themselves to be model Christians because they have a Bible on the bookshelf, I have a suggestion for you. Take a Swiffer to that Bible and open it up to what Paul writes in Romans chapter 2, verses 5 through 9. But in accordance with your hardness and your impertinent heart, you are treasuring up for yourself wrath in the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render to each one according to his deeds, eternal life to those who by patient continuance in doing good seek for glory, honor, and immortality, but to those who are seeking and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation and wrath, tribulation and anguish on every soul of man who does evil. If I'm getting pitches into your strike zone with what I've said here, I also want you to know that you're not yet condemned for eternity. Yet, your eternity can be established in heaven if you respond in obedience to the words of Jesus, which we read in Luke chapter 6, verse 38. Give, and it will be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be put into your bosom, for with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you. For those with giving hearts who want to help their local food pantries be able to serve those in need, you can find the location and website of your local food pantry at feedingamerica.org. Find-your-local-food bank. We'll put that link over at our homepage. Oh, as an FYI, too, food pantries can actually get more food with cash or gift card donations than they can with donation of food items. Additionally, this month, Scouting America, used to be called the Boy Scouts of America, are holding their annual Scouting for Food drive. You might have already had your local scout troop leave a bag and a flyer on your door. The flyer has the day and time. Those scouts will come back around to pick up whatever food donations that you're able to give. Giving this way ensures that your donation is going to stay local and thereby helping your friends and your neighbors. Don't forget to check out our website, issuesandideasradio.com. That's where we have information about the guests who were here on the show with us today, as well as access to the entire Issues and Ideas world. We're now on Apple, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube podcast platforms. You can check out the classic conversation on the homepage, of course, the link section, video, so much more at issuesandideasradio.com. Always grateful and thankful for your time and for your attention. It's very important and special for us. Look forward to being with you right here this time next week for our next edition of Issues and Ideas.